only bust out this jersey for special occasions. So anybody who's been with me for a while knows that, yeah, something big happened today, and we're going to talk about it. We're mainly talking about, obviously, Sergio Busquets and Jordi Alba playing their final game at the Camp Nou. But as you know, I do 5 headlines, not just 1, not just 2, yeah, but all 5. So let's do it. Here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-0 win over Mallorca. Headline 1 is legends say so long. Of course it was. Busquets and Alba, not only their final game at the Camp Nou, but also saying goodbye. It was their final game in a uniform in totality. Both Alba and Busquets, Xavi admitted, won't be suiting up for Vigo, that being Celta de Vigo in the final Liga match next week, and they won't be making the trip to Japan for that friendly with Vissel Kobe. And I'm glad this game was played the way it was. With Barcelona up a man, it did allow Barcelona to kind of play the way that has made so many Culés think of the way that Busquets has led this team, and the way this team, when they're playing at their best, is a mirror of their current captain in Sergio Busquets. And you can see how desperate his teammates too, that being Busquets, were to get him a goal. He had 2 attempts and he gave a smile both times, saying, well, yeah, if I got a little bit of luck. It's not like he didn't score any. It's not like the Javier Mascherano situation, where even before he ended his time at Barcelona, his teammates were desperate to get him on the score sheet at least some point in his over 200 appearances. And while the goal didn't happen, I think Busquets was just fine with that being his final appearance in front of that crowd. And for Jordi Alba and Busquets, it was interesting too to see that dichotomy of emotions, where Busquets just kind of gave a smile, came off the field, and did his ho-hum kind of, well, it's just another day at the office, while Jordi Alba, in the same ways that he played in those highs and those lows, which is why he was criticized, and not to say that certain people didn't love him, but we can all admit that he was one of the best to ever do it at his position, especially for FC Barcelona. And to see him, that being Alba, overwhelmed with emotions, even when he was already on the bench, even when it was time to give his speech, Alba gave his all to the club, and so did Busquets. And it was interesting to see them say thank you together, but both individually in their own ways. And while Culés have this season been able to get accustomed to the idea of a Barcelona without Alba, the idea of Barcelona without Busquets for even 3 or 4 games is something that feels completely unknown, because he's always at least in the squad, always an option to at least come off the bench, even in the games that he was rotated and didn't start. So to see him completely unavailable for Vigo, and then of course there was those games with international duty in Spain, a friendly is a friendly, but it is going to be really weird next week to see Andres Iniesta playing a half in a Barcelona shirt and sitting with this picture of Iniesta in a Barcelona uniform a week after we saw Busquets in a Barcelona uniform for the last time. Now, in 2 to 5 years, Busquets could also have his testimonial match where he pulls on that Barcelona uniform for one final time. But as I said, it's going to be a bit weird how it's going to be Iniesta next week after having said goodbye to Busquets and Alba today. Headline 2, let's talk about the game a little bit with a perfect start. As I already mentioned, it made everybody's job a lot easier with Barcelona from the first minute taking care of business, taking it to Mallorca, and giving the Camp Nou supporters something to celebrate. It was a clean game from Barcelona from the jump, and for as lackluster as Barcelona were in the last 2.5 matches after they went up 4-0 over Espanyol, you could see from the opening whistle that the players had something to motivate them, they had something to play for, and in this game, a lot, especially at the top level, does boil down to what do you have to play for, and how can you use your talent to play for that. So immediately, Barcelona overwhelmed Mallorca with their talent, with their tenacity, and this is a team, even without Araujo and Pedri, when intensity and desire meet talent and technique, good things happen. And I think that kind of sums up today's game. It began in that first minute. Balde just kind of seamlessly taking possession, Barcelona moving upfield. They're going side to side, moving the ball quickly with that possession. Then it was Busquets deciding the moment. This is going to be the big thing that Barcelona lose, of course. Deciding the perfect moment to get that ball into a vertical space. Lewandowski with a wonderful touch onto Gavi, and Gavi putting his body on the line, the little pass getting over to Ansu Fati, who finishes the little dink in FIFA style. And that's an easy one. Ansu Fati's easiest goal of the season, and I'm glad he was able to do that. And hopefully scoring that goal means that Ansu Fati isn't 100% completely lost. On the other side, from Ansu on the other wing, was Ousmane Dembélé, who did put on his let's do something, let's make an impact boots today, actually for the second time in 2 straight games. I know the last start for him wasn't one that everyone was overjoyed with, but he's completed 19 of his last 25 dribble attempts in the last 2 games played, in the last 2 starts that he's had. And while Barcelona, while it wasn't 100% intense, it wasn't the peak of their powers, and Dembélé, as always, is the thing to watch on the wings for Barcelona, more so than all the other options. Headline 3 was Balde's bad news. It was a shame that Culé didn't get to see Mallorca's, well, I want to say up-and-coming stars, and Kang-in Lee, who was previously with Valencia and arguably one of the best young players in the Liga this season. But as sad as that was, of course, Balde getting that bad news. You can't have just a great day. You can't have a perfect day at the Camp Nou. Of course not. So Balde, that nasty, nasty tackle, should have been somehow more than a red. Awful tackle from Amat Niadi. Got the red card, and if you're the Liga, I would even look at this for an additional game or two. That's how bad this tackle was. And watching Balde need to be carried off the field, pretty nightmare-inducing with just how good he has been. And knowing, with Ansu Fati also starting this game, looking upfield, and Dembele on the other side too. Pedri in the stands, Araujo in the stands. How one injury, or an injury even like this to an ankle, can completely turn a young player's career upside down. I hope that isn't the case for Balde. And that is just a terrible way to end the season for Alejandro Balde, who I can already tell you, while it might be a week or two before I do those postseason awards and all those kind of things, he's going to be the breakout player of the year. He's going to be the La Masia talent of the year, just because he took all those worries that anybody had against Jordi Alba and a possible decline, and he put all those doubts to rest by grabbing that starting spot and earning it and keeping it all season. Yesterday, Xavi said that the left back spot is good with Balde and Alonso for next season, but with this same situation next year, now you'd have Alonso likely playing 13, 14 matches with almost no backup for him. I guess Roberto's the backup, is it? Inigo Martinez in theory would be the backup in a back three. We'll have to see if Xavi is indeed saying that it's just Balde and Alonso, and he's not just posturing and he doesn't have any other tricks up his sleeve, that next season he could be relying on Alonso quite a bit, especially if Balde's recovery doesn't go according to plan, as Kool-Aids at this point should not expect that any will. Headline 4 is Ansu Fati's secret goodbye. Okay, here comes Conspiracy Dan. He's coming in for headline 4. Because as I've said, I've had a pit in my stomach. I would love to keep Ansu. With him having renewed his contract, even if he were to give Messi the number 10 back or whatever it may be if he arrives, Ansu Fati should be with Barcelona next season. Because his ceiling, regardless of Ferran Torres and Rafinha, Ansu Fati's ceiling is much too high to give up on a 20-year-old at this point in his career. Much too high. And I also feel like I'm reading a bit too into that Gerard Romero rumor that circulated that there was a third player, and we know it's not Sergio Roberto. And I got this sense when Ansu Fati subbed off with Jordi Alba. And I know Dembele subbed up with Busquets, and it's nothing to think about, but it felt like the energy from Ansu Fati. He was applauding the fans, and I know they were obviously applauding him and cheering him because he got those 2 goals. It was essential. I understand all of those things, why they were cheering him, why he was cheering them, why it was just a lot of good vibes and feel-good moments for Ansu Fati today. But I also got the sense that while he can, I would hope that he even returns someday. Whether it's a 35 million euros plus Ansu Fati for Ruben Neves to Wolves with a repurchase option in the next 2 years, or whatever deal for Ansu Fati might be. A loan for 2 years that another team would have to pay for because of the caliber of player that he is, and Jorge Mendes being his agent. All those things went into my thinking here to say that Ansu Fati surely isn't saying goodbye to the Camp Nou, because he could very much return. But even after that second goal, you could see the weight was lifted from Ansu, as it is with every goal. And imagine him playing for another team in another uniform, which I don't want to see, but not having any of that pressure whatsoever. I know he wants to fight for a spot at Barcelona, but the club might have already told him, you can fight for it later, but we're going to have to come back and get you. Or you can choose to come back to us. Next year there's going to be a lot of moving parts, and we can't take that risk on you to hope that you become good and worth the wages that you're going to be making next season. And all that negativity I just spewed at you hurts because of just how today was an example of what Ansu Fati can be and what is capable of in this Barcelona team, combining especially with Lewandowski and the threat that Dembele is on the other side. The second goal was even more beautiful than the first. Ansu started the move, kept his run going. It went de Jong to Lewandowski, another awesome touch from Lewandowski, by the way. I will probably talk more about the podcast about how good he was today, but Lewandowski was fantastic. Let me throw that in there. And that pass from Lewandowski finds Ansu, and it's a confident finish. A nice job staying onside as well, maybe the hardest part of that entire move. He had another great attempt just before halftime. One touch to set himself up, and he turned on it well. Saved by the goalkeeper, but you could tell at that moment, not only did he want the hat trick, but he was feeling confident as well. And a confident Ansu Fati is a really dangerous Ansu Fati. It was arguably Ansu Fati's best game of the season. And while I've said many times on the podcast, I think his fate for next season is already decided. It's one of those games where I would love to be wrong about. I would love to see this exact game from Ansu Fati multiple times next season in a Barcelona uniform. And headline 5, let's just circle back to it so we can put the cherry on top of this nice ice cream sundae. This is Busquets and Alba ending their time at the Camp Nou. With that third goal especially, it got me thinking. Gavi scores it. Another great team goal, though. Kept at the pressure, knocked it around the horn. Dembele found Gavi with too much time and space, and Gavi scored Barcelona's 100th goal of the season. And with it being a team goal, that epitomizes what Alba and Busquets were to Barcelona. Were they Messi, or Ronaldinho, or Kubala, or even a center back like Puyol, or even Stoichkov or Rivaldo, players that aren't necessarily seen in the same lights as the Ronaldinho Messis and who were the best of the best, but who were still just so good and so important and gave fans so many memories of putting the ball in the back of the net. No, Busquets and Alba, that wasn't their job, that wasn't their role. but there's so many beautiful team moments and team goals that they were at the center of that were scored. And while I say don't take them for granted, you don't have to love every player who plays for FC Barcelona. You can also criticize every single one of them, including Pedri and Araujo and Gabi and some of the current fan favorites. No player is free of criticism, of course. And I don't think any player should, especially for a Barcelona player, should be completely thrown to the wastebasket. And not to get too sentimental, because I do want to begin that process of not taking for granted the next generation of the Ansus, hopefully, and Pedri and Gabi and Araujo, as I mentioned, and Balde, of course. Because if you took him for granted for even a moment this season, if he misses any time at the beginning of next year, I guarantee you're going to be wishing that he were back, of course, for Marcos Alonso. But for all Kool-Aids, everybody watches this team for their own reasons. Everybody watches the game for their own reasons. Everybody has their favorite players. Everybody has players they don't like. But one thing that I feel like does connect all Kool-Aids and all fans of any individual team is those moments that the players create, the ones that Busquets created. As I was watching the video that was saying thank you to him and Alba, it is great that even all the negative stuff that we remember of these two players, there are those bad moments that are going to stick out in your mind forever with these two. But more importantly, those highlight packages and the trophies, especially the trophies, those are going to be the ones that define their legacies. And I hope as Barcelona make new legends and new stars over the next decade plus or however long I'm going to keep doing this, I'm going to try my best not to take them for granted, and I hope you don't either. And I hope you don't take this channel for granted either. So there's my little plug. Give it a like, subscribe, and all that stuff. And it's following the theme from Busquets and Alba. Thank you so much, everybody, for supporting this channel. And thanks to Busquets and Alba for all the good moments that they were able to give this channel and me as I've been watching their entire careers at FC Barcelona. It has been enjoyable for me. So as always, until next time, Forza Barça.